What is happening, y'all? I'm FightinCowboy, and welcome to the finale. Now, just because this is the final part does not mean this is the end of the journey. In fact, quite the opposite. There's still quite a lot left to Elden Ring, but at some point, we want to see you spread your wings and fly on your own. So, in this episode, we're going to be making our way into kind of the medium portion of the game. So we have Gelmir up here, we have Altus up here, and we're going to be establishing footholds in both of those areas. On the way down there, we do have a merchant right here we'll pass by. A couple things to point out. The nomadic cookbook, of course, is good. And then he also has bewitching branches. This is one of the very limited sources of this in the game. And these can be used to charm enemies. There's a boss that's much later that this can be useful for. So just keep in mind that this merchant is here, because at some point you're likely going to want access to those. Now from here, we are actually just going to run right along this ravine over to this hole right here. So go ahead and mount up and head on over. As you make your way through the ravine, you're going to notice a lot of large bulbous enemies that spew poison. I would suggest just running past them. They're not exactly aggressive, but do make sure to grab the golden seed that's on the ground. And then after that, you will end up right over here at the entrance. Kind of grace right here. Now, there are a couple of different ways to get into the northern regions, just to recap a few. If you have the medallion halves, you can, of course, just take the lift right here with the Dectus medallion. That'll bring you right up into the Altus Plateau. If you get kidnapped over here at the Royal Academy, that will actually get you up to the subterranean Inquisition chamber, which you can use this to exit directly into Gelmir. My personal favorite way to go up is via the Ravine Veiled Village, and that's what we're going to cover in this episode. The main reason for this is running through the Ravine Veiled Village. It's going to give you another boss, which is another solid chunk of runes, around 24,000 if I remember correctly. And on top of that, it puts you in a very nice spot where there's a couple of kind of side dungeons you can do that are early Altus, and just all in all, it's a good area to be in. So as we continue on in this zone, I'd suggest there are going to be some miners, so you could use either your Zweihander or your hammer. Either of those is going to work fine. In this case, my Zweihander is at plus 16. If you've been following along, your primary weapon should also be that high by now. And so that's what we're going to work with, just because it's going to do more damage. I'll be able to kill the miners just as fast with that anyway. Let's go ahead and put on the lantern. But yeah, this way there are a few enemies, a few miners we can kill, but there's a good chunk of smithing 4s and a few smithing 5s. So this is the main reason I prefer this route to get up north. It's just we're going to snag up even more upgrade mats, and that's going to help us to get a secondary weapon caught up to our primary. Now, there are quite a few ambushes in this zone to be aware of. This is going to be our first ambush room, and if you look, you can see enemies sitting over there just waiting for the chance to strike. If you look carefully at the ground, you'll also notice caltrops, and if we walk over one, it'll trigger. This will create a poison cloud, and those can inflict you with poison. So definitely be aware of that. It's very easy to get poisoned by these. You can see them all over the ground, kind of scattered. And the hope is that you come in here and these enemies end up kind of just overwhelming you. So we're going to go into this room, kill that one, and we're going to pull them into this room. Now with the Zweihander, obviously we have a very, very wide swing, so it's easy to take them out. But fighting them here by the elevator is a little bit easier than fighting them in that room. Speaking of the elevator, you want right here, we got a smithing stone 5, so we'll go ahead and grab that. And then from here, we are going to drop on down, and we will drop on down again. And we should be able to pull this lever again. So just to talk about our stats, since we are moving out of the early stages of the game and more into the mid, and to elaborate on that a little bit, so when I think about the early portion of the game, I think about the lakes, I think about Limgrave, and I think about Lower Caelid. When I'm thinking about the mid portion of the game, the mid, kind of middle to late-ish, you have up here, which is Gelmir, which is we're going to be establishing a foothold. We have Altus Plateau, and then we have Upper Caelid. And then after those, we have the capital right around here. That's going to be a legacy dungeon. And beyond the capital, we move into the late game portions And essentially, we're going to be leaving you to do a little bit of exploring on your own for these later portions of the game. But at this point, if you've been following along, you should be approximately level 70. Some key points here. 25 endurance is a really solid foothold for a melee class. If you're going to go heavy armor, it may benefit you to go more, but I think a lot of builds will function really well at either 25 or 20. 40 Vigor, that's the first soft cap for Vigor. Vigor is going to soft cap at 40 and at 60. These enemies, be careful using fire around them. The things on their backs can be ignited with fire and it'll cause them to explode. And obviously if you have a blunt weapon, you know, relying on the hammer will make very short work of these enemies, but I'm fine with just killing them with the sword. They're not exactly hard. So we round up here. There's another ambush waiting, so kill this one. Oh, wow. Wow, he's really low to the ground. There we go. Took a couple of hits to get him. And then back in there, you can see another one that's kind of trying to be sneaky and hiding. The thing is, these miners are passive, so the difficulty in getting through here is really running for the miners, because you don't think much of them, and then the smaller, the bestial enemies, they will jump on you. This is going to explode, so pop it twice, or once, and then roll backwards twice. There we go. Get a Somber 4 out of that. Head on up. And now we are at the ruin-strewn precipice. So, really nice area to kind of see the backside of Liurnia. There is the gate that we could take up. Actually, I might switch to the hammer, just because it's fun. Use the Zweihander for so long, it's cool to mix things up. So we can go up here, but instead, you'll notice we're able to drop on down and pick up a Somber 4. Bonk. We'll say it's really, if you can afford it with your build, it is very nice having two primary weapons, you know, because the hammer is going to be really nice for, you know, staggering enemies. You know, if there's a single target that I'm trying to get through, the hammer is going to be my go-to. If I'm surrounded or I want to do bigger hits, the Zweihander is going to be solid. But that's one of the benefits of having just multiple weapons, you know, just a bigger arsenal. In late game, I mean, on most of my builds, once I get up to around 150, at that point in the game, I'll have 4 or 5 different weapons to choose from, just depending on the situation I'm going into. The biggest thing is just keeping up with the upgrade mats. So early on, at the point we're at right now, it's easy to manage 2. Beyond that, you get stretched a little thin, but just gonna continue along. Grab that. There's a couple more bats here, but the bigger thing is we want these smithing stones, and we want to go for the matriarch. So with these enemies, I'd suggest running in and getting like a jump heavy attack on them. That should knock them down if you're running a heavier weapon. The matriarchs, they can create clouds of poison mist, which, as you can guess, that gets quite annoying to deal with. Okay, everybody line up. Gotta love wild swings. You'll also notice that we infuse this with cold. With this particular weapon, cold will split you to strength and scaling, and so it actually works out pretty well. It's still pulling from our strength a lot, but frostbite is unique in that after it applies to an enemy, they take additional damage, roughly 20% more. So the other big thing is if I'm fighting something that's partially resistant to physical, now I'm doing some magic damage. So it just gives me an alternative damage route, but still relying on my strength to scale. Get that golden rune. Hop back over. Plus, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of squids up here. I don't know how these squids got up on this mountain, but they do not handle the frostbite well. I mean, who would have thought, right? You know, an aquatic creature freezing. And take this up. Now, oh, almost forgot about you. Let's see, you tucked away back there. This is why this is a nice route, though. Lots of smithing 4s and 5s. So there is another grace that's up ahead. If for some reason your health is very low, you can actually just run past them and get on over to the grace. If your health's doing okay, we're gonna head on over here first. And we'll kill this big one. And for taking out the land octopus, we get the Serpent's God's Curved Sword. A pretty interesting sword. It's going to actually heal you a little bit on kills. From here, we'll switch back over to our primary. We got a loop here. And we have one here, if I can. There we go. There's that poison mist. Let's see. If for some reason they're getting annoying, we'll just ride on up. Very easy to just slip right past them. We are going to go back down and kill them, but wanted that shortcut first. There we go. The first time you kill a matriarch, you always get a golden rune 6, so it's nice to make sure we kill them just so that we have runes on demand in inventory. But from here, take the elevator on up. You might as well properly rest at the grace. I went ahead and changed the time of day, and it's time to head on over to the boss of this area. And right in here, we are going to have something you've encountered before, a Magma Wyrm. Now, there is a summon here for Great Horn Tragoth if you need a little bit of help. This guy's very beefy. He will certainly assist, but to be honest, you probably won't have any issues with this enemy. You could pull from your Mimic Summon to see it more in the fray at this point, but this particular enemy is going to be killed pretty fast just from charged heavy attacks. So we're gonna wait. Now at the health bars here, we can start getting some damage in once it stops. Honestly, the most difficult part of this fight is just the lava that it's going to leave around, similar to the other Magma Wyrm, but once it stops moving for a second, you'll see we're able to really chunk it with those charged heavy attacks. Probably one more will have a stun. Yep, there we go. I'll run on up, get over to that eye. Oh, nope. There it is. He tried to get up. When are you going to let him? Give it a second. He needs to recover. Otherwise, he'll have his iframes. So you can see right there. That hits. And we'll do one Lion's Claw. There we go. And just like that, Magma Wyrm Makar is down. Now you could certainly come here and do this earlier, don't get me wrong. Some people actually prefer to come here before Caelid, but some of the stuff up in Gelmir, I think, is a little more difficult than lower Caelid. So personally, I prefer the approach of doing lower Caelid first, and then working your way into the higher regions. So with him down, we're going to ride this elevator on up, and this is going to bring us out to the Altus Plateau. Now, another reason that we did this in the order we did, if you visit the Altus Plateau and you rest before going to Caelid, the festival will automatically commence, so then you have to do Radahn before you can take down the double boss, the one that gave us access to the Ruins Greatsword. And it's just a little out of order, and it's kind of, it's a little awkward as well, because you show up and the castle's empty, and the only thing waiting for you is like the double boss and then the festival. But so this is your first introduction to the Altus Plateau. I know we don't have the maps just yet, but there's a couple things over here that you can't see right now because we don't have the map uncovered. So there's some ruins, there's a cave. Instead, we're going to take this path and we're going to run straight on up. Now, in a moment, there's going to be a large dragon that tries to ambush us. You can't actually kill it right now, so I'd suggest just ignoring him. Sooner or later, we'll have a proper encounter with this massive beast, but it is a pretty cool showing, you know. You're landing it. In comes this massive thing, Ancient Dragon Lannisix. But we actually fight him later on, so just don't worry about him for now. This is very similar to the dragon near Ronnie's Tower. You'll fight it and it'll disappear partway through, and then you'll have a true showdown with it at a later time. Once we get on over here, we'll grab this. And now we are properly in Altus, and welcome to the Erdtree Gazing Hill. Very beautiful sight. Go down here, grab this seed. Now, from this point, just to kind of do a quick breakdown, if we draw a line here, this is considered Gelmir. Everything to the east is considered Altus, and those are the next two areas that you should aim to accomplish. So this grace right here is actually an excellent entry point into the Altus Plateau. If you want, there is a I guess we could go grab the map just to we'll run on over and grab the first map for you just to make things a little bit easier in terms of navigation. It's going to be right over here. We're just going to run towards this hill. You can go that way to reach the shaded castle. And I also want to get you a entry point grace into Gelmir, because Gelmir is essentially a very long loop. You loop around a volcano, and then right around the volcano itself is going to be the Volcano Manor, which is the legacy dungeon of this zone. Running past, we'll just grab that turtleneck meat. And we're not going to worry about these enemies right now. We're just running on over to get the map. There we go. And once you come out to the road, you just make a left, and you can see the map marker right here. Map found. We will... Actually, there's a grace we can grab that's right here. We just go straight due south, and we'll get that grace along with the seed, and then we'll warp back, and we'll get you the foothold into Gelmir as well. Stuck on the branches. Where did that grace go? There it is. Tucked away behind all the beautiful fall trees. Go ahead and hit that, and then flying up the map, now you can better see the separation. So you can see where the start of Altus really is. We're going to go back to the Erdtree Gazing Hill. And we're going to get down into the valley that represents Gelmir. So I'm going to take this path up. Now there's actually some catacombs and caves right around here that I highly recommend you do. There's another ball bearing around here that you can get. So, you know, take your time, explore this area. There's a lot to uncover. as we go up. You can see that Mariner. Just go ahead and run pretty much straight at him. We're going to run right on past him. Still just running past him. You can see coming up over here, we have now entered Mount Gelmir, and we have our entrance grace. And there's a couple different ways to get over here. I just find this to be a good starting point, if you will, as you can start your loop that I mentioned. So as I mentioned, this is the final part of this series. Now, like I said at the start of this, there is still a ton of stuff to do in Elden Ring. After you get past these regions, there's even more. So I'd say this is, if I was to ballpark it for you, I'd say you're about 35–40% through the game. There's still a lot to discover. And, you know, the hope is that you take all the things we've taught you and all the lessons you've learned in this series and you continue the journey on your own. And, you know, if you get stuck, you can always look up FightinCowboy and I'll be there for you. But either way, thanks for joining us on this journey, and I sincerely hope you enjoy your time in the lands between.